Ginga Ginga.
Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome back to Let's Talk Anime. I didn't discuss it in the last Let's Talk Anime video that I recorded, but I tried a little bit of a different technique with how I edit the video, and I hope this works out as well. It worked out in the last video, so I'm gonna try and keep doing it like this, so if it works out, good. But I'm not going to waste any more time. If you have any discussion topics for Let's Talk Anime, leave them down in the comment section. This video is all discussion topics, so I'm going to start with Death End Request, which this I never even heard of actually. The person that gave me this topic told me that I would have to find a playthrough of it online, and that's what I ended up doing, obviously. I don't remember the username that posted the playthrough, but it had just the playthrough and the cutscenes and all that, and no outside dialogue from somebody playing it, which was a weird experience to say the least. Hopefully that narrows down who the username was. I'll find it and post it in this video if I can think of it. But if you're like me and don't know what Death End Request is, I guess the broadest term that I can give for it is it's kind of like a Kingdom Hearts, because it has the whole thing of fighting darkness or whatever. Now, I've never played Kingdom Hearts personally, I've just watched other people play it, but I can gather that it's generally the same idea. But obviously, I didn't watch this user play through the whole game, because there were at least probably more than a dozen parts, each one being over an hour. So to give context to everything that I'm going to discuss, I only watched roughly the first 30 minutes of the gameplay. Basically, I cut off after Sheena's conversation with Rook. So for the stuff that I liked, the first thing that I liked, and it was a very minor thing, I'm not sure if many people realize or even noticed, they have a difficulty setting adjustment at the very start of the game. You could have it be easy if you're a newcomer, normal if you want to play it normal, or hard if you want a challenge. I'm sure that that's nothing really too spectacular, but as somebody that's only played Pokemon, that's something that caught me off guard, because the only games that did that were Black and White, and that's only post-game. What else that I liked is, at the very start, I liked how Sheena's voice actress did a very convincing job of being attacked by that big thing or whatever. I still don't know what that is. But tying into the whole voice actor-actress part, I looked at the cast list online, and I was happy with a lot of the names that popped up. I don't know if there's more than one site that has the list of the cast on it. I'm sure that there probably is. But the one that I saw had Erica Mendez, who was Megumin in Konosuba.
My name is Megumin. I am an arch-wizard who wields Explosion, the most powerful, most feared, most deadly spell in all the land.
Who was Retsuko in Agretsuko.
This is fine.
And what's her name? Akko from Little Witch Academia, to name a few.
This is gonna take forever, though.
Faye Maita, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but the only role that I know her as is Aqua in the Konosuba dub.
Lethal Fist! One that carries the goddess's rage and sorrow! Whomever it strikes will perish! Up close like this, you froggies are pretty cute.
And from the clips that I've seen, she does a good job in that. And finally, the person that plays Sheena is Kaylee Mills, and the only reason I know of her is because she plays, what's her name? The dumb green hair girl in Iruma-kun.
I'm Clara. My right foot's Connor. My left foot's Mer.
I literally can't remember her name right now, but I'll probably put some clips in between of the different voice actresses showing their chops, basically. And I think there were a couple of other ones that are well known, but those were the three that stood out, especially Faye, because, like I said, the only thing I know her from is Konosuba. So if this was around the same time or even earlier, that's cool that these actresses get parts in stuff that's not anime. What else I like is, first of all, they have little text box at the bottom showing what the characters are saying, but the actors and actresses actually voice out the lines as well. And when they show the lines at the bottom, they basically follow it to a T. Now you might think that sounds negative, but it really doesn't, because they really go all in on it. Like, when it shows a word that's all capitalized, they put a lot more emphasis on that word. And when they put a word in italicized, they put emphasis on it like that. And even when a character's stuttering, they put emphasis on it like that. I like how they basically go all in on it. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people can just read the lines. But characters like Kaylee Mills being Sheena really puts themselves into the character. And the plot. What was the plot again? It's something like Sheena loses her memory, but not really. But then she has to go. Oh, there's some high up city that she has to go to, and all this bad stuff is happening. So, like I said earlier, kind of like Kingdom Hearts. But what I like about the plot of it is Rook basically explains the plot in a way that Sheena's been unconscious for the last couple of months, so he's giving her the rundown, basically. But they explain what's happened, but there are still some questions left up in the air. Although, being someone like me, like I said, only play Pokemon, so there's probably some stuff that I could notice when I went back and watched it a second time. But like I said, the plot is good. But on to the cons. At first, this was a bit of a bigger issue for me, but then it just kind of weaned out. The cutscenes that they showed at the start, especially with that giant beast thing that's attacking Sheena at the start, the cutscenes seem a bit fan-made in a way. It probably was that I just wasn't used to it yet, so I didn't know what to expect. But the cutscenes at the start seemed like they were just made by somebody in their basement or whatever, for example. And I did kind of mention this earlier with Sheena getting her memories, because Sheena wakes up in that home and she's walking around and gets her memories back. Then when she leaves the house, she says, "Oh, I got my memories back." And so I'm just here thinking, if you got your memories back, why'd they put such an emphasis on it? But later on, they kind of retcon it, I guess to say, where she has some, but it's still kind of fuzzy. So I guess my con for that is kind of unwarranted, but I felt the need to bring it up anyway. I didn't write this down, but I feel like the biggest con for somebody like me that doesn't even have a PS4, I've seen that it's for PS4, I don't know if it's for anything else, but for somebody that, as far as I know, has no way to actually play the game, the biggest con is that it's a lot to sit through. Like I said, multiple parts, hours on end. But that just comes with the territory of video games, I guess. But at the end of the day, Death End Request, very good. But it's not as good as the next thing up. Nice segue, huh? The next thing up is Tower of God. If you've been keeping up with Let's Talk Anime, then you know that I brought this up in the last video, and I did this not even realizing somebody commented saying, "You should discuss Tower of God." And initially, I was gonna wait till more episodes are out, especially with this whole delaying every anime. Who knows if it would even get finished? Although I think it seems like it's going to be, along with Kaguya-sama and a few others. But to give some background, I'm only discussing the first episode because I want to finish this whole thing at once. Because I feel like this is a show that is better watched all at once. Or at least in multiple sittings, not once a week. So getting into Tower of God, one of the first things that I am introduced to is that opening song. Now, I knew the opening song from before this because everybody is hyping it up. And to be fair, I can see why. It's a pretty good opening. The only thing that I would say is that it's pretty weak on the visual side because it just cuts to black every 5 minutes or 5 seconds and shows the list of the cast members, which isn't bad. It's good to get them publicity, or at least let them know, hey, I did this. But every couple of frames, it cuts to black and shows the cast list for who's involved in the show, which is good, but when you're supposed to be introducing the show, it's kind of weird that it just cuts to black, shows another scene, cuts to black again. I mean, I don't know. The song's good, so it kind of makes up for it, but on the visual side, it could be a little bit better. Now, it might be fixed in the next couple of episodes that I watch, so who knows. But before I go any further, I think we have to have a serious talk here. You have to choose which is better, the opening song or the ending song. Because both songs are done by the same person, or same group, I think. So, it's not like you're comparing two different artists. But I would say, me personally, the ending is so much better. Not to say that the opening is bad, like I already gave my thoughts on the opening, it's still pretty good. But I already knew what the opening sounded like because so many people were talking about it. The end of the episode came up, this ending came in, and I was blown away because I didn't expect something like that to be an ending. It's very cool. Although both songs are only 2 minutes long in their full versions, which is kind of a disappointment. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna get into more of the episodes after it's fully finished, but episode 1 is such a good introduction. I wouldn't say it's the best because they don't really go in depth on like why this is happening, why that's happening, but like with Death End, it gives you enough to keep watching. And this probably isn't going to be like a huge revelation to anybody because I think people have already brought it up, but I can see similarities between this and Hunter x Hunter, especially early Hunter x Hunter, because even in the entrance exam, they had to go up a tower or down a tower or something like that, so they already have that comparison. But that blue-haired dude that's shown at the end of the first episode seems OP, kind of like Killua. Especially even design-wise looks like Killua. But overall, there's not much that I can say specifically pointing to this thing. Yes, this is the reason that it works. But like between Bam's introduction with Rachel, or Rachel leaving to go to the top of the tower because she wants to see the stars or something like that, kind of interesting. Then you got that weird cubey looking thing that looks like it came out of Madoka Magica. And then you got my favorite character. Although it's kind of presumptuous to say my favorite character after only one episode, but I really like Yuri. She's just like a fun character, and it's probably just because this is fresh in my mind. She reminds me of Emilia from Devil is a Part-Timer, but they both have that sort of smug attitude. And that's just funny, especially in the scene where Bam meets her, which, sad to say, that's basically where my only con comes from. And it's a lot more noticeable in that scene, that the animation is a bit strange at times, because thinking of the scene in my head, Yuri is like hitting Bam with her foot, and then when she does the spin back, the animation's kind of like jaggedy, that like feels like it skipped a frame or something. But of course, that's not saying that everything in the animation is a bit rough, because it certainly stands out, but there are just some times that the animation seems a bit off, me personally. And it's mainly noticeable in that one scene. But yeah, just like Death End, Tower of God gets my seal of approval. But it's time to finish this up, and I'm finishing this up with Shironeko Project Zero Chronicle. I'll probably just call it Zero Chronicle from on out, just to make it easier on myself. But to start, it is from a mobile game, and in a weird sort of way, you can kind of tell that it's from a mobile game, just from how it's played out. But the things that I can say that I like is that it's pretty interesting. Even at the midpoint when, what's his name? The guy with the sword that fights, what's that guy's name with the black and red hair? Oh wait, he didn't give a name. That's right. I'll just call him Edge. I don't think there's any other name that I can call him because he's got the full black hair, little red stripe. There's no way that I can't call him Edge because he's basically just an edgelord. But anyway, I didn't expect the route that they took with, first of all, edgelord getting the guy's sword or whatever, and then the guy just dying. I did kind of expect that they would take the route of, oh, Edge Boy gets the sword, but I didn't expect that the guy would just die from it. The only other plus that I can say is that this seems like they're building to a fight between edgelord and Iris, just from the opening, or they might be building to a yin-yang sort of relationship like they did with Black and White, where you can't have one exist without the other. But now it's time for me to tear Zero Chronicle a new one. And let's start with the cons. Like I said earlier, this boy is just edgy. And it's kind of funny now that I'm thinking about it more, because I wrote these notes a few days ago and I'm just revisiting them now. It's weird in a way that I call him Edge Boy. I mean, I get why I did it because he's got the black hair with the little red stripe, but really, he doesn't really act like an Edge Boy. But really, when I saw him, and he was in like the first scene of the show or whatever, I immediately thought, are we in an isekai? Are we transported to some different world? Because he seems like he would be just like the standard protagonist that transported to any other random isekai world, and that's it. But from what I can gather, it's just his own little world. But whether they end up fighting each other, or a yin-yang relationship, or even a romantic relationship, who knows? To be quite honest, I don't care enough to even know what's happening further. Although one good thing that I can say is that they build it up in a way that the first part of it revolves around Edge Boy, and the second part of it revolves around Iris. But at least to me, the first episode didn't show me enough of Iris and Edge Boy for me to even care about them. Like, I mean, it's not a big thing, but one thing for you to get invested in a character is to know their name. When that old guy with the sword is talking to Edge Boy, he says, "Hey, what's your name?" And he just replies, "You can call me whatever you want." And I was thinking, okay, buttface. It's just like, it's hard for me to even get invested with Edge Boy if he doesn't even have a name. Not saying that him having a name would solve the problem, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. But I feel like that's a bit of the problem territory that comes with when you adapt an anime based off of a mobile game. Because just from me, it ends up being something that I'm not even interested in. Because most of the time, it doesn't really translate that well. Although I think a show like Princess Connect Redive is based off of a mobile game, and that's pretty enjoyable to me. But at the end of the day, it's just super standard, super safe, cookie cutter formula that's done in every other show. I talked about Ari Ferretta in a Let's Talk Anime episode from a couple of times back, and it just reminds me of that. Super cookie cutter formula that every other anime that does this does. Although at the same time, I only saw the first episode, so my opinion of it could change, but like I said, I'm not invested enough to even care what happens after this. But that's gonna do it for today's episode of Let's Talk Anime. I feel like this is something that I should mention, and I probably should mention more, but I never think of it. If you end up liking Zero Chronicle, that's great. I personally don't, and I hope that you personally don't feel attacked because I'm attacking a show that you like. Just like how I won't feel personally offended if you attack a show that I like Kaguya-sama Love is War, for example. Everybody has their own taste, and at the end of the day, I just didn't like Zero Chronicle. But that's today's episode. Leave any topics down in the comment section that you want me to discuss, and I will discuss them when I get a chance. But until then, Momentai.